We're going to begin. We're starting out a little bit late tonight because it's a very, very big topic. We finished the series on the Midot, and tonight I'm doing a special lecture about Echu Matai Leochiach, or how and when to rebuke. Very important topic that involves a very important mitzvah. Ochiach tochiach et amitecha. Quick definition of the word rebuke in English. Rebuke includes the terms reprimand, to admonish, to reproach, or to criticize. They all have slightly different meanings, and they're used differently depending on the circumstances. Nevertheless, we do come across them quite often because in our life, either we will be criticized by others, or we will have a need, and I emphasize a need, a true need, to criticize or to admonish or to rebuke others. So it is important for us to know when and how to do it, especially if we want to be successful, we want to be effective in giving over our opinion, or we want to correct someone's mistake. We want to do it in the right way without insulting him or her. This is a mitzvah taseh, believe it or not, it's a positive commandment. It's not an option that you have. Sometimes there's a need to do so. The mitzvah says, Ochiach tochiach et amitecha, that you should rebuke, if necessary, your friend. The reason for this mitzvah is to be found in the pasuk itself. In the pasuk itself, the pasuk begins with the words, Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha, Ochiach tochiach et amitecha, velo tisa alav het. So the pasuk already begins with an explanation. Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha, don't hate your brother. You have something against him, you're upset at him, then ochiach tochiach oto. So on the simple level, the simple meaning of the words ochiach tochiach is don't bear a grudge. Don't keep it inside. You have something you don't like about someone, he made you upset, then ochiach tochiach, then let him know. At least give him a chance to say, I'm sorry. Give him a chance to make amends. Give him a fair chance to improve the situation, to improve the relationship. So lo tisna, don't hate. If you don't say anything, you're going to hate him. You're going to dislike him. You're going to always have something against him. The second meaning is lo tisna, don't hate another Jew. You should be caring about another Jew. You should have an interest in helping another Jew. If you see another Jew, amitecha, somebody that is, of course, similar to you. Amitecha means someone who's like you. In Torah and mitzvot, you should be concerned about him. You should have an interest. Not like the Americans say, mind your own business. We don't mind our own business. We do care. We do sometimes get involved, and we sometimes have to say something because we care. We love someone. We're concerned about him. So therefore, lo tisna, don't hate him. On the contrary, show sympathy, show empathy, and rebuke him for his own good. That's the second idea. The third idea is what the rabbis tell us, Kol Yisrael arevin ze lazeh. We're all responsible for each other. Am Yisrael, the Jewish nation, suffers together. We are in pain together. What happens in Israel affects us. We're one big family. When we are blessed, we're blessed as a nation. We're all one body, one unit. What affects one Jew should affect another Jew. If another Jew, therefore, is not doing something right, we should want to get involved. Because of, not only we should be concerned, that was the other idea. We should be involved because we are responsible. So, ochiach tochiach tamitecha is an obligation because of responsibility. We actually have a responsibility at times, and I will tell you when, to say something, to do something about the situation. But in this mitzvah, we have two additional details that help us understand how and with whom. With whom, amitecha, it has to be ideally someone who is Jewish like you, amitecha betorah u'mitzvot, somebody that is observant, somebody that cares, somebody that has an interest in the Torah, not just anybody from the street. Then, of course, there are limits to what we can do. How much do we have to go out of our way if somebody's totally unobservant? Somebody doesn't care. Are we wasting our time? So ideally, the Torah says you have special responsibilities with those who are within your sphere of influence, which I will elaborate later on who those are. your children, your close friends. Amitecha, the Torah does emphasize, after all, it says Amitecha. The rabbis tell us Amitecha beTorah u'mitzvot. Ideally, one who you may actually influence, whom he may listen to you. The more the obligation you have to say something. But just keep in mind that you cannot do it in any way you wish. You cannot insult him. You cannot embarrass him. Lo tisa alav het. Lo tisa alav het means be careful not to embarrass him. And as a result of your rebuke, you're actually committing a sin, a transgression. You're putting somebody to shame. That's a very, very serious sin. So lo tisa alav het. Another interpretation of the words lo tisa alav het, which we'll talk a little bit about later on, is that in case you do not rebuke, and you say nothing, and you could have made a difference in that individual's life, you will be held responsible. You'll be held accountable. Therefore, lo tisa alav het means you better do it, otherwise you're a partner. Acquiescence. You agree to the way he's behaving. You don't say anything. That means it's okay with you. It's okay with you. Then you are held accountable for his mistakes. That's an additional important interpretation of the words lo tisa alav het. Make sure you do say something if you have the ability to do so. Otherwise, you will be held accountable. This midah of actually wanting to be criticized, accepting criticism, is a very special midah. The rabbis tell us in Pirkei Avot that one of the midot, or one of the ma'alot, one of the characteristics of one who loves the Torah, who immerses himself in the Torah, who wants to do his best job as an observant Jew, is ohevet hatochachot. You will find this term, this description of an individual who's serious about himself. He wants to succeed in life. He wants his neshama to reach its maximal potential. And therefore, it welcomes. Ohev hatochachot means it welcomes criticism. Most people don't welcome criticism, right? They're afraid of it. They're ashamed of it. But in reality, someone who is serious, someone who wants to succeed, who wants to always do the right thing, then he should be welcoming the tochachot. The rabbis therefore tell us this individual who wants to be koneh et Torah, ב-48 ma'alot. The Torah is acquired through 48 steps, 48 ma'alot, 48 activities or behaviors, things that we need to do to acquire the Torah. And one of them is ohev tochachot. Ohev tochachot means he actually welcomes criticism. And when we say welcome criticism, we mean not only does he accept when others criticize him, he actually criticizes himself. As we say in Hebrew, he examines himself from time to time, whether it's once a week, whether it's every night before he goes to sleep, as some big tzaddikim used to do, or once a year, right before Rosh Hashanah. So you can see how this topic is very apropos right before Rosh Hashanah. We need to not only think about others, we need to think about ourselves. In other words, criticize ourselves, examine ourselves, and see what needs to be corrected before the new year, before we go and face the court of justice, Yom Hadin. I just would like to add one detail that you may have perhaps not seen anywhere. Detail that is important that also applies to this mitzvah, this pasuk. Ocheach tocheach et amitecha, even though I just finished saying it is proactive, meaning that you actually go and say and do something to make a point. You tell people their faults. You point out what's wrong. That's the basic literal meaning of the word ocheach tocheach. You're actually being active about it. You're saying something. You're pointing something out. But there is an ocheach tocheach, believe it or not, where you are passive. You don't have to do anything, and you are fulfilling the mitzvah of ocheach tocheach. How could you be passive, not do anything, not utter a word, and still get across a message? What would you say? Yes?
If somebody says lashon hara and you don't,
If somebody says lashon hara and you don't
communicate with them, you don't continue the lashon hara by adding.
Well, perhaps, yeah, if you don't continue, if you don't say anything, but still the message is not strong. One of the strongest and most powerful messages that you can communicate to your children especially is dugma ishit, as we call it in Hebrew, when you are an example yourself. So when parents or friends, people who are very close to each other, act in a certain way, you're being a very good example, you're giving tochacha, you're giving musar. You're basically showing by example how the other person should behave. And that is why when people get married and one is stronger or more religious than the other, it's okay. As long as, of course, they both get along, it may be okay, because with time, the other individual who's weaker, who's not completely, by the way, opposed, because then you have a war. He's not opposed, he's not up to it. When somebody tells me about someone, oh, they're not religious, I tell them, add the word not yet. It doesn't sound good when somebody is not doing something that they should. They're not yet. He's not yet putting on tefillin. One of these days he will put on. So when somebody, the other partner, is weak, he's not completely opposed, he's just weaker, he's not interested yet, he's not as courageous as the other one, so it's okay. Give him a chance. When he or she sees the other one who is stronger, what a beautiful example they are, how their life is so much richer, how happy they are, maybe it will be contagious. Maybe it will affect them. So that it will affect them without any criticism, without having said a word, just by example. So to live by example is, of course, a very important type of tochacha, of rebuke, but not in a negative way. You haven't said a word, you haven't done anything except to behave in a certain way, which could be a great example for others to follow. This obligation, this mitzvah of ocheach tochiach, of giving criticism or rebuke, is especially important for those who are within the sphere of our influence. Friends, relatives, our children. As Rabbi Yonatan Eibschitz points out, the rebuke, the criticism of a good friend is worth more than 1,000 speeches of the rabbi. Rabbis can speak and speak and speak, and sometimes the words leave an impression, sometimes they hit the mark. But what happens many times is that people hear it and perhaps they get excited and stimulated, but it dissipates. It doesn't last. Even if it was very good speech, the criticism of a friend who's always with you, or every other day, or quite often, he spends time with you, and he says something to you, and you know it's coming from a friend. It's not coming from somebody who doesn't like you. The words of a friend, the criticism of a true friend, will go a long way, much more effective than 1,000 speeches of a rabbi. There's a lot of truth to that. But this is, of course, unconditioned, a very important condition. As Shlomo Melech points out in Mishlei, Tova tochachat megula me'ahava mesutaret. Shlomo Melech says, it is better a tochachat megula, a revealed, an open rebuke, me'ahava mesutaret, from a hidden love. Now, what does this hidden love have to do with anything? So there's two interpretations on this pasuk. Listen to them both carefully, because they have totally different meanings, but they both are right. Tova tochachat megula me'ahava mesutaret, according to one opinion, is the tochacha that is open, the criticism that is being made open. You're saying something to someone, and it could be painful. It will be good if it's me'ahava mesutaret, if deep in your heart you love this person, you care about them. You know why this will work, by the way? Why will this work? Why will this tova tochacha megula work if it's me'ahava mesutaret? Is it just because that's the only way you should criticize? No, not only that. Obviously, you should care about the person. But the Shlomo Melech is giving us here the recipe for success. Tova tochachat megula, it will work even though you're openly criticizing somebody, if it's from the bottom of your heart. Why? Because as the rabbis point out, Varim hayotzim min halev nichnasim lalev. Words that come out of the heart will penetrate the heart. People can communicate through their hearts. People know if people like them or not. It's a mirror image. If you like somebody very, very much, that other person likes you. People are different in how they express their feelings. People do not always do the same thing as others would do. People are on different levels when it comes to friendship, not because they don't like each other as much, but because each one has a different way of expressing that love. But if it's coming from the heart, it will be identified so, and the other person will accept it, and it will possibly make a difference in them. Yes?
You once mentioned on a personal level, you had a neighbor or a renter or whatever who was disconnected, and you said it's very difficult to criticize, but by example, my family, the way I live, hopefully. So the question comes up, Rabbi, are you obligated to go a step further and invite that individual to your Shabbos meal and as a kiruv, rechokim.
What's your intention exactly? To invite them over to your house?
You told me how it's very difficult. So, by example, we could show people how a Jew is supposed to live,
Right.
without directly telling him.
Right.
But are you obligated to go that step further and say, would you please come Friday night to my Shabbos table? You know, invite them to a meal.
Well, you can. Remember, I mentioned that once upon a time, rabbis tell us who is a strong man? Ezu gibor hakovesh et yitzro, right? One who's able to control himself, who has good discipline. That is a strong man. Who is the strongest of the strongest? Zeh haoseh misono chavero. One who takes an enemy and makes him a friend. If you have the courage and the know-how to take someone who dislikes you, someone who dislikes your beliefs, and to transform him, you get the medal. Do you have to? We'll talk about it at the end, when you have to and when not. That's reserved for the end, when we talk about our responsibilities with our relatives, when to say and when not to say. Right now, we're still in the introduction phase. Okay?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Are you allowed to criticize a spouse?
We're going to get to spouse criticism later. That's a special topic in itself. Yeah. So one pirush in tova tochachat megula me'ahava mesutaret means that if it's coming from your heart, the tochachat megula is proper and good if it's me'ahava mesutaret, from a deep rooted heart love. The other pirush, however, is it's always best to criticize than to just like someone and not say a word. The rabbis even say that if a big rabbi is being successful in his community, nobody has anything negative to say about him, it means he's not doing his job. Had he done his job, they would criticize him. They would say something about him if he would be strong. So some criticism is always good. It's a sign that he's doing something, hopefully, as long as it's constructive criticism, which we'll talk about that too. What is constructive criticism? So the second pirush of this pasuk is tova tochachat megula me'ahava mesutaret. It is better to criticize openly than to just like somebody deep in your heart but not to say a word to him. What will come out of that? Nothing will come out of hidden, private, reserved love. Show that you care, right? Even if you really mean it, it's going to make a difference to him. If you really care, you would say something. A lot of people, because they want to be friends, not only don't they say anything, not only don't they criticize, they even flatter. And flattery is a sin. Because if that is something wrong, then you're misleading him. You're allowing him to believe that what he's doing is right, and that is terrible. So you have to be very careful that sometimes if it is within your means to say something and that individual may hear you, then you better use that opportunity. Rabbis tell us any ahava that does not have any tochacha is really not ahava. If you love somebody and you don't ever want to criticize him, even though he made a mistake, it's not pure, it's not true love. True love means that you really care for his olam haba. You care that he should do the right thing. So you're not embarrassed to say something. You actually mean his well. Otherwise, it's not true love. You don't really like him. The rabbis even say one more thing. I think it's brought down in Sefer Orchot Tzadikim. You want to test your friend? Make him upset, and let's see how he reacts to you. If he says, it's okay what you did, don't be his friend. If he criticizes you back and tells you, right, what is this all about? Why did you do it? Right? You know, what are you trying to accomplish? If he starts arguing with you, that's good. That's a good sign. That means he's not going to flatter you. You just criticize him. You said something negative about him. And he wasn't just quiet. He actually basically said, how could you do this to me? In other words, he was offended and he starts arguing. That's a good sign. Be his friend. In other words, he's willing to hear the criticism. But if he keeps quiet, nothing happened, that means he doesn't want to hurt you, even though you hurt him. Stay away from him. He's more interested in being your pal because of some other interest. He's not your real friend. Yes?
I just want to know, when do you draw the line between criticism and judgment?
To judge someone?
Yeah.
That's a whole different idea. Rabbis tell us, don't judge someone negatively. Judge him favorably. Give him the benefit of the doubt. Is that what you're talking about?
But when you criticize someone, you're taking something that is maybe negative about that person.
Well, you're right. When you're criticizing, you are interpreting a certain situation to be this and this and that. That's a valid point. If you're doing it from your heart, if you mean someone's best interest, then obviously you have to do it in a very, very subtle way at first. You have to do it privately, and we're going to get to that, how to do that, how to criticize. That's more on how. We're not there yet. Right now we're just describing the importance of criticism, but when you're judging someone and you're not going to be criticizing him, then it's important that you give him the benefit of the doubt. We actually said a little bit of that in the very beginning. Don't hate someone. If you have any doubts about what he did, bring it up to him. Why did you do this? Or perhaps I didn't understand it. So you're right. If you're going to be judging, you either give him the benefit of the doubt or approach him and say, what is this all about? I'm confused. Right? Why did you do this? You're not necessarily criticizing. You want to understand. In that event, in that particular case, you should also, the correct thing to do is to approach him if possible. If you can't, give him the benefit of the doubt to be on the safe side. Yes?
Okay. I'm not sure I understood correctly. You were recommending for if one person criticizes his friend, and okay, so my friend criticizes me,
Right.
and I just accept the criticism and say, oh, it's okay, then that means that they shouldn't be my friend if I just accept it? But
No. I gave the example, when I gave the example about testing someone, it means you actually have to do something very, very, it wasn't just criticize. I may have not explained it well.
You insult?
Not necessarily insult, do something harsh to him. I maybe have not explained myself well. Not just criticize him, but say something that will make him very upset as a test and see how he reacts. Criticism in itself may not be the best example because actually you may be criticizing something correct, whereas my example really was to do something which is not so good, which is not so right, just as a test.
We should test our friend?
Yes, if necessary. If you have any doubts. Not that you should go around testing now, right? Because most of the time we don't need to test because we just know who our friends are. But if you come across a situation where you have any doubts, you're saying, well, is he a true friend or not a true friend? Then do something. Criticism, or worse than that, do something just as a test and see how he reacts temporarily.
You're hurting the person for nothing.
Yeah, but if he reacts, if he really is your friend, you're not causing him a loss, you're not causing him so much pain. It's a temporary test. It sometimes will work to your benefit. Again, most of the time this is not done and it's not really necessary. It's just an example that the Sefer Orchot Tzadikim brings to impress upon us that those who flatter you are not your true friends. Politicians are not your true friends. They just want your vote. They forget about you once they're elected. That's what he means. They don't, yeah.
I would think if I did something to my friend and they said it's okay that they're a good friend because, wow, they're so forgiving.
It all depends what it is. Yeah, those are minor things. If the friend says he's okay, it's okay, don't worry about it. That's minor. We're talking about something wrong, something which is asur. You gave the impression that you did something, oh, how could you do this? If he really was a true friend, he would point it out to you. How could you do this? This is wrong. If he's your true friend, he would point it out. He would not try to cover it up. Covering it up means that he's not your true friend. True friend is interested in you doing the right thing. That's the basic idea behind it. Even though we criticize sometimes and we think those who we criticize may not like us, the rabbis tell us that in the end, a person who is a sincere individual, who's interested in self-improvement, he will like you even more. As the pasuk says, "Al tochach letz pen yisnaeka ochach lechacham v'yehaveka." Don't criticize a mocker, a scoffer, those people who are not serious, because he's just going to hate you more. Leave him alone. Don't bother with him. Who should you criticize? One who is smart, a chacham, one who has an interest in self-improvement. Because if you do criticize him, in the end he will like you even more. Because he is interested in this. So if you want to succeed, you just can't do it with everyone. It has to be someone who's somewhat serious about himself, serious about self-improvement. If he is, then he will actually like you more as a result of the criticism, because he will become a better person. You've discovered, you've pointed out his mistakes, something that he may not have done on his own. Therefore, you are helping him to discover his faults and to hopefully do something about it. This is a very important point, because it appears like if you criticize, then he's going to hate you. He's not going to like you. You know where this is very especially very important and sensitive? Father to son, mother to her son, to her child. Should we be very, very harsh, we feel, well, they won't like us. Rabbis tell us in the exact opposite. A son that was rebuked, a child that was rebuked, that was criticized, that even had a very hard time with his parent as a result of the continuous reprimands, in the end, that child usually will love and respect the parent more. And it's actually a pasuk. Shlomo Melech tells us, a very, very powerful pasuk, Chosech shifto soneh beno. One who holds back the whip ends up hating his child. Because he did not rebuke him, he held back the whip. He pampered it. He spoiled the child. When that child grows up and deteriorates and goes off the derech, off the way, and becomes rebellious and a vagabond, right, of sorts, then it will be a shame to the family. The parents will suffer even more from that. It will be very painful to see a child that you just let him do anything he wants, and as a result of that, he got carried away and became a criminal. But if you reprimand him, point it out, even though it's difficult, even though it's harsh, even though he doesn't like it as a child, when he will mature, when he will grow up, he will come to recognize the benefit of that. And the reason why they come to recognize it, because of what we said before. When things are done from the heart, and a father and a mother usually, whatever, even when they rebuke, it's from their heart, right? They slap their child, it's from their heart. They don't want to do that. Some parents cry more than the child when the child is being hit. The parents sometimes cry more than the child because they don't want to do something like that. So if it's done from the heart, the child will recognize it at some point in their life. They will come to terms with that. What was done was really from the bottom of their heart. Most parents, unless they're crazy, and they are, in this country you have lots of crazy people, right? But I'm not talking about the crazies. Normal parents love their children more than they love themselves. Believe it or not, it's hard to believe, but that's the nature of things. A parent wants everything for his child. Even if he doesn't express it, even if you don't see it in his heart, he wants his child to be the best. He wants everything for the child. But of course, on his terms, the way he understands the child's life should be. But he still wants the best for the child. Yes?
Sometimes, though, you just don't know when you want to criticize someone how they're going to take it. You just don't know. Is he going to be mad at me, upset, or is he going to be very receptive to the criticism? Sometimes you just don't know.
Sometimes you don't know, right. So again, we're going to get to that. When should you and when should you not? You don't know. So we have to go by certain rules, and we'll talk about that a little later. So far what we've covered was the definition of what Ocheach Tocheach Tamitecha is. It said that it's a mitzvah, that there is a need for it, that it's a good thing, and if it's done right, it will go a long way. Now let's talk a little bit about those who don't do anything, how serious that is. Those who can protest, can say something about a situation, and don't do anything at all, how serious that is. Just the opposite. Rabbis tell us, "Mi sheyesh bi'ado limchot v'lo moche nitpas ba'avon ador." Somebody has the ability, it's within his means, to protest, to criticize, to admonish, right? And he does not so. He will be as guilty as the people who are guilty for whatever it is that they have done. Even though he is not committing the same sin as they are, for not protesting, he is caught. He comes upstairs, on your record we have this sin. This, I never done that. Yes, you did. How? They show him a movie, you did not protest. You could have said a word. You could have said no. You could have said it's wrong and you did not. Since you did not, it's on your record too. That's how serious not protesting is when you could have said something, or when you had, I should say, when you had the obligation to. Because we still haven't spoken about when and how. But so I'm just saying, let's assume when you could have, when it was within your means to do so and you did not, then you were held accountable. Why? Because of what we said. When you do not, it appears, just for appearance, it appears that you are in agreement with this. Right? That's why the Zohar says something incredible. If people are sinful and you protested, even though they continue in their sinful ways and they're going to get punished, you at least saved your skin. That's what the Zohar says. You saved your skin by protesting. So even though they went along and continue to do what they're doing, you've saved your skin. Now let's turn the page a little bit to what happened in Yerushalayim during the Second Temple era. The rabbis tell us something incredible. It's so hard to understand. Great rabbis lived back then. Very studious, very knowledgeable people. And one of the reasons Yerushalayim was destroyed, Lo harva Yerushalayim, el al shelo chichu zeh et zeh. One of the reasons Yerushalayim was destroyed because they did not rebuke each other. They did not tell each other off. And you wonder why. Why? That's something so simple, so easy to do. To criticize is something very, very easy. And they didn't do that. The easiest thing to do, they didn't do. Anybody want to guess why would the rabbis criticize? Why wouldn't somebody criticize when it's so easy for him to do? Yes?
You're afraid that the response will be negative, or you'll either hurt the person or be hurt yourself?
How would you be hurt yourself?
Yeah, the person could
Withhold funding.
go against you,
Withhold funding.
Maybe
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's a problem today.
maybe in
Yeah.
business or maybe in other ways they would hold a grudge against you and
Yeah.
work against you.
It could be. There's all kinds of reasons. The Nevi'im, the prophets, when they were rebuking, some of them got hit physically. Yeah. So it could be dangerous. But that wasn't really the main reason why at the end of the Second Temple era. This was more during the First Temple era, where some of them were actually afraid, but they still rebuked. They were prophets. They had the message from Hashem. They were not afraid. But yeah, people are afraid for all kinds of reasons. You're right. For monetary reasons, the guy's going to stop funding. He's a big benefactor, a big donor, right? But that's not the general reason of why they didn't rebuke back then. These are Chachamim. They know better. However, the rabbis tell us, the commentators explain, one of the problems in the end of the Second Temple era was sinat chinam, baseless hatred. Baseless hatred means apathy. People don't care about each other. Everybody's concerned with his own success, with his own life. They don't really get involved in other people's life. Apathy. And because of apathy, people are indifferent to other people's mistakes and problems. They don't care. They simply don't care. They see something wrong, they don't get involved. Now, not only don't they get involved, when a person himself has that problem of sinat chinam, of baseless hatred, when he himself is infected with the symptom called baseless hatred, that he doesn't really have the courage to get up and tell somebody else because he has the same problem. How could you do this to him? You yourself are the same. When people are the same, when people have the same faults, they don't really have the courage, unless they're hypocrites. How could you tell somebody else, you better not do that, that's wrong, when you yourself are doing that? It doesn't make sense. So, subconsciously, on a subconscious level, if you have a certain fault or weakness, you don't have the courage to get up and speak up against it. Right? Imagine, it just doesn't make sense. You just sit back and do nothing. That's why in the tragic incident of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, when rabbis just stood back and allowed the host to throw somebody out who was an uninvited guest from his house, it was a very shameful experience. How could the rabbis just sit back and allow something like this to happen, to throw somebody out? I said, you can't do that. You cannot put someone to shame in public. They could have yelled at him. We're going to leave in protest if you do that. He would have stopped. But if they themselves are apathetic about it, or maybe the guy was giving them some mullah too, who knows, right? There could be other reasons too. They have some interest here, but it's really more than that. They don't have the courage. They don't have the strength anymore. They are weak because they themselves are, in a way, indifferent to these kind of things. They see this every day. When you see these kind of things every day, you lose sensitivity for shaming someone else. They're used to it. So you threw him out. Big deal. He's not his friend. After all, why did the guy come to begin with, they figured, He deserves it. Some of them could have thought like that. He deserves it. Who knows? When people are indifferent, when they don't care so much, they don't have the courage to say something to protest. Yes?
In the case that you said where you have the same problems, so
right.
you're afraid of telling, are you supposed to still tell that person that they shouldn't do this even though
Okay, very good question. What if you have the same problem, the same fault as somebody else? Are you not allowed to say it? There was a big rabbi who once gave a speech about women who were dressed not modestly. He got up and spoke about how it's so wrong, how it's a big sin, this is serious, you're misleading men, and so forth. Somebody came over to the rabbi, "Rabbi, how could you give a speech about that when your own daughter dresses immodestly?" So you know what he says to the guy? Tell me, if Chaz v'Shalom, that young girl of his, if she were to convert to another religion, does that mean that I should speak about the benefits of that, or that I should not speak against it? That's it? Just because his child is doing the wrong thing, I have no permission anymore to speak about it? So the answer to your question is that even though you have a fault, you can still speak about it if, on condition, your talk to that individual is l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. You really mean the words you said. Otherwise, if you don't mean the words you say, the rabbis tell us, kshot atzmecha lifnei shata mekashet acherim. Take care of yourself before you take care of others. Rabbis tell us, adorn yourself, kshot atzmecha. Clean up your act, as we say in English, before you clean up somebody else's act. You're attempting to clean somebody else's act, clean up your own act. But, as you said, nevertheless, if you might be able to influence him, and your intention is l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, you really, really want his benefit, what I would suggest, however, is to say, listen, I have the same problem as you do. Let's work on it, the two of us together. Then your words are going to be a lot more effective. And that's one of the suggestions that I will give you at the end on how to succeed in criticizing. Include yourself, especially if you have the fault. All right? Now, because the rabbis tell us, Mum shebecha al tomar lechavercha, if you have a blemish, don't point it out to your friend, otherwise you won't be effective. Because of this idea that people may have certain faults, and therefore it would not be right of them, and they will not be successful to criticize others, the rabbis tell us this is exactly what's going to happen in the days of Mashiach. In the generation of Mashiach, en tochacha. The rabbis tell us in the Gemara, en tochacha. Nobody will be able to criticize and reprimand anyone. Because if you do, you're going to, hey, you have this problem. We caught you in this, with this. Look how many people are being caught these days. Now, I know we don't want to compare ourselves to the priests, right, Chaz v'Shalom, who are being caught. And we don't want to compare ourselves to Chavrei Knesset, to the members of the Israeli Knesset who are being caught too, doing all kinds of things. We're definitely not like them, right? But people in leadership positions are being caught. So the whole value of Tochacha is being lost. There's nobody to be Mochiach. Who can be Mochiach? They'll point out, oh, the rabbis be Mochiach. We know a lot of rabbis who've done this thing. We know people who are corrupt. People in leadership positions, unfortunately, it's sad. They have been caught doing the worst things you can imagine. This is the days of Mashiach. The air is contaminated. Jews are unfortunately assimilated in certain ways, learned from the Goyim, their behaviors. The air is contaminated. It means everyone is exposed and the Yetzer Hara is very powerful. So there's no tochacha. It's very different. But it doesn't mean, like you said, we should not do it all. Do it anyway. If you have any influence over your friend, your child, just because it's not going to be easy, does not mean you should sit back and do nothing. As long as you do it l'shem shamayim, you really, really want to make a difference in this person's life, show him the right way, make sure that he corrects his mistake, whatever it is, you're doing it l'shem shamayim, then you better do it. Because that may be his only chance. And that's why the rabbis tell us, whoever does rebuke l'shem shamayim, he's on a Kadosh Baruch Hu's side. Kadosh Baruch Hu loves him. Chut shel chesed nimtach alav. Kadosh Baruch Hu loves him and helps him that he should find favor and grace in the eyes of people. It's a tremendous zechut for people who criticize, and those who have been criticized listen to them. Perhaps they'll change their life because of them. As opposed to another group, the group of people that do not protest, do not say anything. As we said earlier, they will be held accountable. The Gemara says something incredible. Never does HaKadosh Baruch Hu change his mind if he promised something good. If he promised something bad, a terrible decree, Hashem can stop the decree. People repent, people say, I'm sorry, people pray. Hashem says, okay, what was promised, what was decreed that will come that was bad, I cancel it. Bad decrees can be canceled, but good decrees are usually never canceled, except for once. There was one time when Hashem had planned that all the righteous tzaddikim in the Second Temple era, when the temple is being destroyed, will be spared. A special malach is going to go out and put a sign on their forehead, untouchable, don't touch them. The malach hamashchit, the destructive angel, should not touch them. Midat hadin kitrega, the attribute of justice, accused the tzaddikim. Why are you saving these righteous men? They're righteous. Yes, but they did not protest. So Hashem tells the attribute of justice, I know that even they would have protested, people would not have listened to them. So the attribute of justice came back and said, Ata yodea, aval hem enam yodim. You know Hashem, the future, but they do not know. They should have tried. They should have made an effort. They didn't, they're guilty. And that was the only time Hashem took back a good decree to safeguard their life, removed that sign of protection from their forehead, and they were caught too, and they were killed. So we see how upstairs they're very, very, very critical of people who do not protest and do not do something about a situation, because it appears as though they are in agreement with what is going on. And that is why it's so wrong. Now you can understand what happened in the Egel. Remember the story with the golden calf? You know who put together the golden calf? It was the Erev Rav. It wasn't Jews. The Erev Rav was all the multitudes of nations that joined us when we came out of Egypt. All kinds of nations who were not Jews. The Jews are coming out. Let's be Jewish like them. They never converted for the real reason. They shouldn't have been invited anyway, because they were not such good people. They were idol worshippers. Moshe Rabbeinu took them. Look, they got us into a lot of trouble. They made the golden calf. They caused us a lot of trouble in the desert. Most of the time, they were the troublemakers. The source of trouble, for the most part, throughout the history of the Jewish people, actually, the Kabbalah teaches us, were souls of the Erev Rav. Till this very day, who are the bigger troublemakers? Who is the one that's causing Jews problems? Non-Jews? No, Jews. What kind? Erev Rav. Those who are from the other side, another camp. Not children of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Not real pure Jews. Individuals who have no compassion for Jews. Individuals who love the enemy more than the Jew. That is how you identify them. They exist all over the place. Some of them have beards too. So what? It has nothing to do with religion and observance. It has to do with the type of neshama. What kind of blood is going through his veins? Jewish blood who cares about Judaism, the Torah, and about his brothers? Or one who is a pacifist, a liberal, a leftist, belongs to the Erev Rav. It's a problem. It's a symptom. We have to deal with it until Mashiach comes. These individuals are responsible for the Egel. Why are the Jews blamed for it? The Jews, throughout the history, when we get punished, part of that punishment includes a little bit the sin of the Egel, of the golden calf, that has never been completely erased. Why? Why are we to blame? Because you sat back and didn't protest. So the Jews' blame for the Egel is not for having made it. We didn't make it. For not having protested. When you don't protest, you let it go. You don't say anything about it. And you were the majority, by the way. You could have stopped it. You didn't? Well, this is what happened. You have to pay for it. We find also in Tanakh, in the Nevi'im, several times where somebody is blamed for having done something even though he didn't do it, just for not having protested. Tzidkiyahu, by Tzidkiyahu, one of the last kings, it says, "Vayasara b'nei Hashem." He did the evil in the eyes of Hashem. He was a righteous man. He was a good man. Why does it say why does it give such a description? Vayasara, he did the ra, the bad in the eyes of Hashem. So the rabbis tell us, not that he was such a bad person. Shelo miha, he didn't protest. Because he didn't protest, whatever was going on there, he could have said something. He didn't say anything for whatever reason. He is considered as though he did it. Another one is we find in the book of Zechariah Hanavi. Zechariah is a prophet. He has a vision. Who does he see in the vision? He sees Yoshua Kohen Gadol lavush b'gadim tzoim. He sees in his vision, in a dream, the Kohen Gadol Yoshua, very, very famous, righteous, very, very important Kohen Gadol. And he sees that his neshama is soiled. B'gadim tzoim, meluchlachim, metunafim. His clothes are dirty, soiled. That's not a good sign for somebody upstairs whose neshama has dirt and filth. The filth and the dirt is sins. You know, it's very painful for the neshama when she's dirty upstairs. She wants to get quickly clean so she can go to her final resting place. Right? That's what Gehenom is all about. That's what reincarnation is all about. To clean up the neshama from its sins, from its filth. So some people are lucky. They clean up here. They suffer. They're in pain. They're ill. They lose money. All kinds of things happen, and it's kapara. It atones and it cleanses them. But for somebody to get upstairs to be still filthy, it's not a very comfortable feeling. It's so embarrassing. So here Zechariah sees Yoshua Kohen Gadol, of all people, he's filthy. So the rabbi tells you know why? Because he didn't protest when his children did something wrong. His children did something wrong. And he could have said something about it. He didn't. He kept quiet. And because of that, that is a stain on him. Of course, later on the stain is removed. Later on, of course, he's atoned. But initially, that is how he appears, only because he didn't protest. That was his main sin. He did not protest what his sons did. In the Midrash, there's something even more serious than that if Jewish people, Chas v'Shalom, get killed, then the blood is on the hands of those who could have protested and didn't protest. Right? Unfortunately, Jewish people are being killed now in Israel. Is there anybody to blame? Yes, people who could have done something about it and didn't. Right? If something terrible happens to Am Yisrael and we could have stopped it by protesting, by doing something, and we did not, then we may be guilty of not having done what we should have done. Now, obviously, we don't have the power, perhaps, depending what is required. But those people who are in power, they're going to be accused. How did you let this happen? The Jewish blood is on your hands.
You learned that out from the Egler Rufa, Rabbi?
Yes, from Egler Rufa, there are various examples of where when you could have done something and you didn't, then you're going to be held accountable for it. Especially whenever there's a Chilul Hashem, B'makom sheyesh Chilul Hashem en cholkim kavod larav. The rabbi tells if there's a desecration of Hashem's name, it's a very serious offense. You better get up and do something like Pinchas got up. Don't wait. Don't wait because you have to give kavod to the rabbi. It's not right for me to get up. Who am I to involve myself? I'm just a simple, small person. No, you don't wait. If something is a Chilul Hashem, a desecration of Hashem, you get up and do something right away. You don't wait. You don't ask questions. You do and you ask later. Right? You cannot afford to wait. That's how serious it is. All right, Musar is so important. Tochacha is so important. Criticism is important. But it's not something that people readily and easily take to. So there's another pasuk in Mishlei that tells us what is required for somebody to seriously accept or welcome Musar or Tochacha is Chokhmah. As the pasuk says, Ladat Chokhmah Musar. Ladat Chokhmah Musar means Shlomo Melech is telling us that in order for one to receive or to accept Musar, rebuke, he has to be a Chacham, an intelligent person. If a person does not want to hear any criticism, he's not intelligent. In other words, part of receiving, part of wanting or accepting the criticism does involve a certain degree of chokhmah, of intelligence. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. So one who cares about his neshama, one who cares about his soul, about his success in life, about his self-improvement, should welcome it, should want to hear about it. But before we attempt to give others musar, we always want to make sure that we really mean what we say and that we don't have that fault as much as possible. Because otherwise what happens when something is not 100% Hashem Shamayim or 100% pure, it runs the risk of failing. Or even if it doesn't fail, it will not be 100% successful. I'll give you an example. There's an incredible midrash that speaks about Yehu. Yehu too took over as the leader of Am Yisrael, was given permission by a prophet to go and destroy the Avodah Zarah and to kill those who were involved in the idol worshipping, and he did a great job in that. He succeeded in doing that, and he destroyed a lot of it. But he did not destroy it completely. He left a few souvenirs, let's call them, of the idols behind. And later he was punished as a result. Now he wasn't punished as a result of the idols that he left. He was punished as a result of killing the people he killed. But wait a minute, I was given permission to do so. Yeah, but had you not left behind a few idols, then we would have known that your intentions are 100% pure. You did this completely L'Shem Shamayim as instructed. And the moment you left some idols, it means that you yourself did not 100% do it L'Shem Shamayim. You did it out of vengeance, or you did it for political reasons. You don't have a clean record yourself. There's something in you. When a person has a negiut, when he has a certain bias, or when he's not completely clean himself, then he will be a little bit permissive about this situation. Had he not been permissive at all, had he gone out and completely destroyed all the idols that were there, then the killings that he committed in the name of the mitzvah, right, would have been fine, would have been acceptable. Once you don't do the job completely, then you're accused of perhaps having a hand in this. Okay, now we've come to the point that we need to figure out when and how to be mochiach. We understand now the importance of it. We understand how serious this is. So when and how to rebuke. Remember that when it comes to rebuke, it's especially important with those who are under our sphere of influence, those that we can make a difference in their life. That is when this is even more important. So I want to give you several rules that are based on what is brought down in the halakha of when, and then we'll go into how. When. If it's something that's not explicit in the Torah, it's not in the Torah, it's midrabanan, by rabbinic decree. The Torah doesn't spell it out that this is forbidden. Okay? And the individuals who we are speaking to about do not know, are not aware. Or he is aware, but we know for sure he's not going to accept what you're going to say to him. Remember, this is the area where it's not explicit in the Torah. People do not know or will not accept it. There is a rule that says mutav shiyu shogegin velo yu mezidin. They're better off doing it unintentional than doing it intentional. Once you teach them the halakha, the rule, and they're still not going to do it, they will be doing something intentionally. And you know, there's a big difference when somebody does something intentionally or unintentionally. Don't bring them to a situation where now they will be accused of doing something intentionally. Don't give them that knowledge if this is something which is not clearly written in the Torah. It's a rabbinic decree. You don't think they're going to listen, right? They're better off being shogegin, all right? If there is a chance that they will listen, then of course you have to try, even though it's not written in the Torah. Okay, so far good. This is something which is not clearly in the Torah. If you don't think they're going to listen, they don't know about it, just leave them alone. If it's something that is clearly written in the Torah, it's forbidden to do, right? Then if it's an individual that is under your influence, a child, a good friend, somebody that you have contact with all the time, then you have to give him rebuke day after day, all the time, even 100 times. You never stop. Until when? Until he hits you. Until he insults you. Until he starts yelling at you, leave me alone. You have to give it all the time. It's clearly written in the Torah. It's an individual, and it's under your sphere of influence. Okay? Individual, under your sphere of influence, and it's something clear in the Torah. If it's not an individual, if it's, let's say, a whole group of people, like let's say you, the rabbi, okay, and it's something clearly written in the Torah, then you have to do it once. Once. Unless, of course, you're going to listen. You know, if they're going to listen. But you know that they're not going to listen. If you know they're not going to listen, they're going to give you a hard time. Once you have to do it. Because it's written in the Torah. This is not somebody who you're with all the time, an individual. This is a public. This is a lot of people, group of people. And you don't think they're going to listen? Well, at least once. After that, the rabbi tells, "Kishem shemitzvah lomar davar hanishma, kach mitzvah lo lomar davar shelo nishma." In the same way that we have a commandment to say things that will be heard or followed, we also have a commandment not to say things that will not be followed. Al tochach letz. Don't bother telling people who are not going to listen. But once, you need to do it. Okay. What about those who are not within our sphere of influence? You meet up somebody in business. You got to know somebody. He's not your friend. He's not your son. Just somebody. He's Jewish. Right? This is the third category. He's not close to you. It's not a public. It's a situation where you meet a Jew. His last name is Friedman. I don't know. You figure out he's Jewish. And you see he's doing something wrong. Should you tell him? Remember, rabbis remind us, this is not just your friend. He's your brother. He's your brother. You have certain responsibilities for him. So, if there is a chance that he will listen to you, then you're obligated to try, but to do it be'adinut, very tactfully. Be very careful, be very tactful, show that you're sensitive to him. If there is a chance. If you know for sure that there's no chance in the world, then you don't have to go out of your way for somebody that you don't have any influence over him. But if you think that there may be a chance, and usually you don't know if there is a chance because you just met him, then you have to try. Anytime you meet someone, you have to gently try. He's not within your sphere of influence, so you're not obligated. You have nothing to do with him. But you have to try if there's ever a chance that you may succeed, only because we're all responsible for each other. What about the other category? Reshaim, wicked, evil people who don't want to have anything to do with it. The left of the left. Right? The Erev Rav. Don't bother with them. There's no obligation. On the contrary, leave them alone. Don't even approach them. Al tochach letz. You don't want to get involved with these people. They're not serious. They're going to make fun of you. They're going to belittle you. It's going to be a waste of your time. So people who are wicked, who you know for sure don't want to have anything to do with real atheists, leave them alone. Don't even say a word. Don't bother arguing with them. You're never going to get anywhere with them. If there's any doubts, obviously you want to try. Yes? Well, go ahead.
So, do you have a friend who doesn't keep Shabbat?
Right.
They know about Shabbat.
Right.
You're supposed to tell. Are you talking about her? So they're in your sphere of influence because they're your friend.
Right.
But they know there's a mitzvah to keep Shabbat. It's just that they have a hard time. I don't know
So from
why.
time to time you have to remind them that they're within your sphere of influence, they're your friends, that you have to try. Sure. Because you actually may make a difference in their life. I didn't tell you how to do it yet. That's very, very unique, how to do it and succeed. But should you? If there's ever a chance, even if it's somebody not your friend, you have to try. Yeah.
How about category 2, like you said,
Yeah.
if you're a rabbi, you only say it once if it's in the Torah.
If it's in public, for a public people.
Yeah, public.
Right.
So sometimes the public you're addressing, some will listen and some won't listen.
Right.
So what's your obligation? More than once then? Because you know maybe some will be receptive, but some of them are disconnected and won't care.
Well, anytime you have a part of the public that is quite receptive, you know for a fact, then you need to.
You need to think
For sure. I'm talking about a public that you know are not so receptive. Then at least once. Anytime somebody's a little receptive, and sometimes you don't know, so you have to try. It's our obligation.
How about when you were working, Rabbi,
Yeah.
at the county as a co-worker, were you obligated to your co-workers? They're in here. They see him every day, 8 hours.
He's not within the sphere of influence.
No?
No. Yeah. He's not a friend. He's a co-worker, he's not a friend. It's different. Yeah, you're not so obligated, but if you think there's a chance, you have to try. Okay, now we've come to a very difficult one, difficult category. A child that does something terrible. So terrible, he marries a non-Jew. He's what we call in Hebrew, chotze kavim adumim. He's crossing a red line. It's not that he doesn't eat kosher or does something. He's really done something terrible that you cannot, we cannot be in peace with this. We cannot tolerate something like this. It's already the worst of the worst. In Eastern Europe, you know what some parents did? They used to sit shiv'ah. They would mourn for this child who's become so detached from the Jewish people. He broke off. He married a shiksa. His child will be a goy. What do you do as a parent? This is a very serious event. This is a very serious offense. And it has to be made clear to the child. What you're doing is horrible, disgusting, completely against the Torah, completely against your parents. And we're very, very, very upset at you. And it should be made very clear to you that we will not accept it. We will not go to the wedding. It's totally off limits. Now, once you've said all of that and you made it very, very clear, you leave the back door open. Because in case he ever leaves, which he may, right? You want to leave the back door open, so in case he ever comes, you welcome him and you hug him. Rabbis tell us, le'olam tiheh smol docha v'yimin mekareva. When it comes to children and when it comes to spouse, husband and wife, always, if you're going to be rebuking or saying no, use your left hand, your weaker hand. You sometimes have to say no. That's just a fact. Your wife wants to spend $1,000. You're going to say, go ahead, honey, as much as you want. Here, take the credit card. You sometimes have to say no because you know your finances. But use your left hand. Use your weaker hand. Don't be too harsh. To say no, you sometimes have to be very, very sensitive. And if you said no with your left hand, make sure you use your right hand to embrace and to hug and to kiss. With a child, you've said no. You've rebuked him. You've been very harsh with him. Just make sure you also use your right hand to hug and to kiss. Don't only use your left hand. Don't only rebuke. You're going to say no many times. Say yes many times too. You were critical, you were harsh, make sure you embrace and you hug. So when somebody does something so terrible, you always want to make sure that he understands. As much as you are against and opposed to what he's doing, you will always take him back and you will always be there for him if he lets go of whatever he's doing that is so wrong. What is advisable is, of course, sometimes you may have to enlist the help of other people to speak to him. You may not be able to speak to him. You may not be as effective. Okay, when it comes to marriage, just a couple ideas. If you're ever going to be critical of a husband or a wife, you want to do it privately, not in front of the kids, not in front of people. Privately. It's very important that it should be done quietly. Whatever criticism you do give should be constructive, practical, and beneficial. What do I mean by practical? If you know that it's impossible for her or for him to do it, to change themselves, then why give the criticism? They are what they are. Unless it's something that can be corrected, why are you criticizing? Oh, you're so like this and you're so like that. What good is that? It's not practical. You won't get anywhere. This is what she is. This is what he is. Be practical. It has to be something beneficial. What's beneficial? Something that will make a difference. Similar to constructive. You have to suggest how to do it different and better. You just can't just criticize. If you're going to criticize your spouse, hopefully tell him how to do it differently. Don't just be negative about it. Constructive, what does constructive mean? To construct, to build on. You want to do it this way? I think it's better to do it this way. Right? So be constructive about it. Do something or say something beneficial. Otherwise, what happens many times between husband and wife, there is criticism because the things that they're talking about are so trivial and each one is just picking on each other. All these little things. Don't be picky. Don't start picking at each other. If you're going to criticize it better be something worth your time to criticize. Because criticism is harsh. It better be practical, it better be beneficial, it better be constructive. Offer an alternative. Suggest something. Suggest how to do it. And it has to make sense. I want to share with you an incredible saying that Lincoln said. Lincoln said, "He has a right to criticize who has a heart to help." You heard that? You understood that? Who has the right to criticize? He who has a heart to help. You're going to criticize, you better be there for them. You better be there to show them how you're going to help them with that, not just to criticize. It's easy to criticize. Everybody can criticize. But you have to convince the other person that you really want to help them. As we always do, just a couple tips on how to criticize. We've covered already when, whom. Now we need to cover just a few tips, important ideas of how to be effective in criticism. Here's a nice saying. Criticism is like rain. It should be gentle enough to nourish another's growth without destroying his roots. So you're going to give criticism? It needs to be gentle. Sometimes you have to be indirect. You don't have to be direct. You can say the exact same thing in a different way and be indirect about it. You know, I heard about this and about this, and then the person will understand from your story what you're trying to say, what you're trying to get across. Sometimes people can't take criticism, so you have to be indirect. You want to say it. How are you going to say it? They're not going to take it. They're going to break down. They're going to cry. So you have to be careful. You have to, if necessary, be indirect. Just like the rain, it has to be gentle. Another tip, don't criticize when you're angry. I don't think that's a good idea. When a person is angry, he's not going to say things right. And I saw one tip brought down by some expert that when you are going to criticize, do it as a sandwich, as a hamburger. You know, you have lettuce on top and lettuce on the bottom, and you have the meat in the between. So put a compliment in the top, in the beginning, put a compliment at the end, and then put the hard stuff in the middle. So begin with the compliment. And actually, this is one of the pirushim that the rabbis tell us, the drasha, on the pasuk, al tochach letz, pen yisnaeka, ochach lechachem v'yaveka. The simple meaning of that pasuk is don't criticize a mocker. He's going to hate you. Criticize the smart man, the intelligent man, he'll love you. That's the simple meaning of those words. But the rabbis use those words in a drush, in the following interpretation. When you criticize an individual, don't tell him, you're a clown, you're miserable, you're a failure. No, tell him, you're such a smart man. You're such a good person. You're such a tzaddik. This is not proper for you. This does not befit you. It's not befitting. See, don't tell somebody how bad they are. First tell them how good they are. So the same idea with this tip as compliments are. Compliments are very good. Begin your criticism with a compliment, end it perhaps with a compliment, and in between throw in a little bit of criticism. It will be a softer landing. Don't let the person ever feel that he's a failure. Sometimes, especially with spouses, this is so true, I've seen it, I've heard it. You want to reassure them, you want to build up their confidence. You trust them. They actually feel they don't trust him. He doesn't trust me anymore. He's lost the trust. Reassure them that you have confidence in them. So therefore, you don't want to in any way blame them and just make them feel bad about it. You need to reassure that you trust them, that you have confidence in them. Watch your tone. Never humiliate. As the pasuk says, Lashon Rakat Tishaber Garem. A soft voice, a gentle voice is so powerful it can even break bones. Somebody who's tough, but you use a soft tongue, Lashon Rakat Tishaber Garem, it can destroy bones. So if you're soft and you're easy and you don't humiliate, you can be a lot more effective. Choose the time and place. As we said before, it should be private. Suggest alternatives. Don't be picky, as we said before. Not everything has to be criticized. You don't have to criticize every little thing. It better be something worth your time. And when you criticize, talk about the behavior, not about the person. I don't like this particular situation, instead of I don't like you when you are like that. It's better if you describe the behavior. And as we said before, include yourself. I'm not perfect either. I sometimes get carried away too. If you include yourself in the criticism, then the person says, oh, he doesn't think of himself that high. It's not just me. He himself admits that he has certain faults. Include yourself. Don't criticize the behavior or the person. Criticize the behavior. It's a lot better to be general about a problem than to be specific about an individual. Talk about yourself. Talk about how, honey, I feel so bad. I'm uncomfortable. I really don't know how to handle the situation. Instead of starting to blame, this is what you did, this is what you did, this is what you did. Instead of doing it that way, you can blame the situation or blame yourself. You know what? I don't know how to deal with it. Maybe help me. Maybe help me with the situation. Instead, you've not blamed them. You've blamed, in a sense, yourself or the situation. Use humor. That's another good idea. Don't compare people to each other. Oh, you know what? That person knows what he's doing. That person knows how to do it. Oh, you should be like them. Never do that. That's a big no-no. Because at the best, the person might say, well, I'm not them. That's good, but it could be even worse than that. It could be a lot worse than that. That can lead to a big fight when you start comparing people. Don't do that. And last but not least, it's called candy coating. Anybody know what candy coat is? Sugar coating or candy coating? You can make a remark. You can make the same remark with a candy coat. It doesn't have to be harsh. It doesn't have to sound so bitter. Candy coat. And some people call sugar coating, some people think sugar coating is not a good idea. Oh, you're sugar coating it. No. You know why sugar coating or candy coating is a good idea? Because the manufacturers of medicines do the same thing. Yeah. And you know why they do it? Because they want you to eat it. They want you to swallow it. You want somebody to swallow your criticism? You're better off candy coating or sugar coating it. Nothing wrong with that. It's always better to embellish it, to sweeten it. You're always better off. You're going to be criticizing anyway. Add a little bit of sugar coating to it. And last but not least, let's not forget, we've been reading Parshiot now, whether it's Bechukotai, whether it's Kitavo, whether it's Nitzavim, Vayelech, and Azino. These are Parshiot now that we're reading now that has Tochacha from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It has Musar, rebuke for the Jewish people. Things that happen in the world are supposed to awaken us. Hashem is reprimanding us from time to time. And why does He do that? Because He wants us to wake up. Now, the way sometimes Hashem does that on an individual level is that He does it first privately. Privately means nobody knows that internally you're suffering. Internally something is happening to you. There's a loss somewhere that nobody knows. It's private. If you don't get the message, then things become more open in public. And at times, sometimes Hashem says, this guy doesn't get the message, I leave him alone. Because remember, rebuke and reprimand are supposed to help us. Sometimes if Hashem sees that the person doesn't do anything about it, depending on what he did, he just leaves him alone. You didn't get the message? No, I'm not going to come after you every Monday and Thursday, unless this is a big neshama, a very special neshama that Hashem wants to help him and awaken. But sometimes Hashem says, that's it, enough is enough. I've done my best. Sometimes, of course, the reprimand is so harsh that the person's life is gone. But reprimanding from Hashem is always for our good. It's always to awaken us. And especially now, before Yom Adin, the rabbis tell us that when we come upstairs, Kadosh Baruch Hu will face us and we will not have any excuses. The brothers of Yosef were embarrassed of him when he said, Ani Yosef. They were embarrassed of him. They realized that they were wrong. Imagine the brothers of Yosef being embarrassed of a human being, their own brother. How much more we will be embarrassed from Hashem when we have to face the truth about our actions. When we see a video recording of all our life, we will be very embarrassed. So, woe to us. How will we be properly prepared to face Hashem when that day of judgment finally comes? The way to do it is to prepare yourself before Rosh Hashanah, which is next week. As you know, Rosh Hashanah is a Yom Hadin for the day, for the year, for our actions during the year. This is a time to make a cheshbon nefesh. Don't wait for anybody else to criticize yourself. Examine yourself and see whatever needs correction. And God willing, when a person examines himself and inspects himself and checks himself out sincerely, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help him to discover what needs to be corrected. And in this way, B'ezrat Hashem, we will all merit to be inscribed in the book of the living, in the book of the tzaddikim. May you all have iktiva v'chatima tova. And may all of Am Yisrael soon hear the good news that Mashiach is coming very soon.
Amen.